All right, good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your recap for Monday, July 30th. We're almost at the end of the month. We still have a lot of events for the week, and markets followed through from Friday. We pretty much closed, I believe. On Friday there's a lot of things that closed maybe a little bit off the lows, but it kind of felt like a close on the lows on Friday. So we got follow through. We had another close, maybe a small lift off the open, but I'll go through the major indices, but just more downside. So, what does that mean for the rest of the week, and what's kind of my market take at this point? I mean, I think that first of all, this move out of tech and the rotation out of tech and mainly growth, by the way, not just tech. I think the way that if you look at a lot of names and a lot of sectors, it's really been a rotation out of growth and maybe a little bit of a move into value, not one for one. I went over numbers that we saw on Friday, which I was kind of jumping up and down because I don't think too many people were talking about. But there was that rotation out of IWF, which is the Russell Large Cap growth, and then there was also rotation out of IWO, which is Russell Small Cap growth. And there was actually a rotation out of IWN as well, which is small cap value, and basically they rotated into value, not one for one. I think that there was more money being rotated out of than rotated in when you add up the numbers. So we heard a few more people. I think even CNBC was talking about a rotation into value. So certainly these things happen, right? I mean, things get built up to a certain level, and there's something that the market doesn't like, hence a couple of earnings reports. And I think I'm not going to rehash this because it's been repeated over and over. But, all in all, is this really alarming? No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, we'll have to see how this carries the rest of the week. But I think people have jitters about Apple, considering what Facebook did, considering what Netflix did, considering what Twitter did. So I think people are really jittery around that. I think if Apple puts together a good quarter, you could see the buyers really come back into place. And that's basically how it works, right? I mean, people take profits. And there's a big swoosh down, and then people kind of look to see where the dust settles, and then start to pick apart some things. So if you go to the Qs, by the way, the Qs and IWM have really been the outperformers year to date, and this happens, once things get to a 52-week high. So I know there's a lot of people who are going to say. And like it's funny because I think even people responding to me about Twitter just when I put out market information, oh, everything's going to go down another 30% more. I mean, I don't really think that, and I think these are a lot of times people have missed the whole run up. I was saying that Netflix is still up 75% year to date. Granted, it's down from the highs about 25% at this point. But the people who want to see these things go down further miss the whole run up for the most part. In my experience, that's how people are. They're wrong, 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 and then they're finally get a move down, and everybody gets all excited. But again, I think these things, some areas just got built up a little bit too much, and if you cannot back the numbers up by crazy strong earnings, where what I always say is you have to hit the ball out of the park. If you don't do that, and names that have gone up severely, then they're going to come down very fast. It's just very logical. So we're down to the 50-day moving average in the Qs. And if you kind of start to look around the Qs, which were down 1.4%, like I said, just maybe got a little bit of a bounce midday, but it really didn't go anywhere. And I think we finished off the lows, but kind of like we did on Friday, right? We're a little bit off the lows. So, maybe tomorrow, day 3 of this, maybe we start to see some buyers come back into the market. I have up VIX and VXN, which were pretty much in ramp zone. But, the one thing that you could kind of take a look at today, and always hindsight 2020, of course, but we did talk about how, hey, the VIX is getting to this area where it's not going to go, it can't really go down much lower, or it's I don't want to say can't, but it's not probable. Once we kind of ducked to a 12, or sorry, I think we even ducked into an 11 on the VIX. That's your time to be taking profits. It's very, very logical. So now we're back up to 14, and we're not even as high. And I think the reason why the VIX isn't as higher than it actually is right now is because most of this is a rotation. It's not just a straight selling of it's not straight selling in equities. It's a little bit of a movement around, and that's why you see the VIX up 9%. But I wouldn't say like blistering. This is a daily chart. VXN, up more. That's the VIX for the Qs. That also was up about the same, 9%. But we're not higher than where we were, just about a month ago. Where was this? June? Yeah, June 26th. By the way, have you guys noticed? We talked about this a little bit in the trading room. How end of the months have been really, if you look at this VIX chart, right, and I'll put it on the main chart here. But I don't know. I'm starting to feel that there's something to this. I've been talking about how the first couple weeks of the month have been very good for me. The last couple months, and then I've kind of, I try to take as many profits and slim down my positions, which I definitely did. However, when names go down as fast as they are, if you have any positions on, especially in the tech or growth, they're going to get caught. So, but you take a look at this, right? Going back from, I'd say from April, right? So the beginning of April, the VIX came down pretty decently. Where's 4-1? 4-1, right? So the beginning of the month, and again, keep in mind when the VIX goes down, usually the market goes up. So I could do this with an S&P chart too, but VIX goes down, end of the month it goes up. We get into May, the VIX goes down, went down until about 525, then ramped up a couple days. And then June it was a little bit more, right? VIX moved down, market moved up. And then the end of the month, there was some volatility. So it seems like there's something to this. So, there's a little bit of a pattern since April. So April, May, June, July. So about 4 months this has been going on with a little bit of volatility at the end of the month. So, if let's say, so what's the takeaway from this little analysis? For August, if the market starts to rally in the beginning of August, just keep in mind, take more profits. So what did I do today, right? So with everything moving down, one of the areas that really has gotten smoked the last couple of days is one of the best performing groups. Now this did this in June too, same thing. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, almost the same percentage move, except it's happened faster. So maybe it's getting a little bit toppy when you have this much volatility, but I would rather have this prove it to me at this point that the dip isn't going to get bought. So I'm looking at names like Salesforce, which really got beaten up today on heavy volume. So we'll watch how these things go for the next couple of days. Salesforce, your Shop, your ServiceNow. I think Red Hat even came back at the end of the day. It may have given back some of the gains, but you could see kind of a hammer, almost a hammer bar. Not exactly. I think price needed to come back a little bit more for that to be a hammer bar. But the reason why I'm focused on this group is it's been one of the strongest groups. Red Hat's a little bit different because they really sold off on earnings, But keep in mind, watch this group to see if it can come back. The software, the enterprise, the application software names. We'll see if buyers step back into this group. Again, it's been one of the strongest, and sometimes trends change. But for now, I would tomorrow I may be a buyer of this group. So today I did buy a couple things that are actually in that group. I talked about how there was a big call spread that went up on Friday in EA. So I bought EA. Today, I started to leg into some January calls. What I normally do when this happens, when we start to get the 2 or 3 day sell-off, what I start to do is leg into positions, and I don't leg into short dated calls. I go out farther. So January for me for this, for EA, because again, I don't know if we're going to continue to have this volatility, a couple more days, or maybe that's it. But usually, we need to see some type of reversal, which we don't have yet. So I start to leg in. Been buying the red days have been very good. So I want to keep doing that until it proves me wrong. So I did that in a couple different places today. PayPal, which I don't, if you look at the monthly chart, you may not, you may think twice about this. But PayPal is one of those names that I really like. I thought it got way overbought. But again, these things have to settle in. So it's a little bit of like participating and buying things when they're down 3.5, down 4%. And then if they're down another couple percent tomorrow, I'll be a buyer there too. But again, it's legging in. It's not it's one shot all in. So that's my strategy when we have days like this. But like I said, we did not really get any confirmation. The VIX. We'll go back to my chart on the VIX, and now I want to go back to the 5-minute. But usually if volatility starts coming in, that is usually one of my trades for confirmation. One of my confirmation. It's the same playbook every time. What I look for is the VIX to start to sell off, and we're not there yet. Same thing with the VXN. Not exactly there yet. You could speculate if it's going to be tomorrow. Maybe it's after Apple reports earnings. But we shall see. The other thing is my other, another page out of the playbook is when people start coming back in to buy calls, and we didn't see that today either. Why do I think we're getting close? Because the put call ratio was like a 1, and it was like that way on Friday too. Normally we don't have too many days of the put call ratio being around 1. That's usually a contrarian buy signal. So I think we're getting close. So we'll see how it says tomorrow. Tomorrow if we start to see maybe we go lower in the beginning of the day and then we come back, or maybe something happens overnight. So I remember saying that it's like deja vu. I remember saying this when we had the same thing happen in June, and I said, "Oh, maybe we have one more day of it, and we make a lower. We start the day lower, and we go higher." And I think we started the day higher, and we kept going. And for some reason, I think that was around. It was literally a month ago. I think it was around the jobs report. Which is coming up on Friday for the month. So it's funny how this has been repeating almost monthly. So what did we see today? So speaking of the call activity, we saw, just like as I'm doing, a little bit of legging into positions. There was a couple small things. Right at the end of the day, there was some WDC calls. There was some QLYS. There's a big order of Twitter. However, it's against open interest. So, I want to go over the Twitter chart, and I want to go over the Netflix chart just to kind of give you a frame of reference of what I'm looking at. But these calls, there's already 11,000 open interest, and they traded for January 40s. What did they do? They traded 9,500. So I need to check open interest because they did mostly fall on the ask. But not all of them were swept. And if I just look for sweeps, I don't know if that classified as a sweep. No, I don't think so. Only this one that went up at mid-market. So there wasn't, those did not class. Doesn't mean they weren't bought, but it's, they weren't, if they were bought, they weren't bought aggressively. Which is what I refer to as when you see sweeps, people are buying. So interesting, right? Twitter, it's now been 2 days since they reported earnings. Usually the 3-day rule is at least, I usually like to wait that out. So I did not do anything in Twitter today, but it's on my radar. We'll see what it does tomorrow. It's also got the 200-day moving average support. It took out one of these VPOCs. If it breaks the 200, it's got 2870 to go to the downside. So I would definitely be a buyer at that level if it comes down here, 2870. Long term, and I would, I'll have a level of support to trade against, but I would rather see it hold the 200-day moving average. And then Netflix is another one. This closed right on the lows of the day. You got this virgin point of control. Again, if you're not familiar with a virgin point of control, I'll define it here for a quick 15 seconds. It is where a lot of buyers and sellers have met up a lot of volume, right, has met up previously, where price has never returned. Hence virgin point of control. A lot of times these will act as magnets once you start trading below range. So I would rather have this level be taken out. We do see a lot of reversions once these are taken out. It's not guaranteed, but I would rather trade against that level of 328.67. So I would be a buyer of Netflix, which is still up 75% year to date. And then we'll see where it's at. And again, starter position. What I would really want to see is confirmation, where we have some type of a reversal bar, some type of big call buyer that comes in and says this is enough to go to the downside. So we're not exactly there yet. But those are two names that I'm watching. So again, all of these things, right? You don't have to buy everything that goes down. Set up a plan, set up a watch list, and set up levels where you think that you really care in some names. Besides that, for call buyers in the growth space, they really weren't there. There was one order, which I don't know if you would call American Airlines a growth name. I don't know if that's a growth name or a value name, but anyway, there's a January call buyer in this one. There was a lot of XLI calls, 15,000 that traded for August, which I find, I don't know, kind of odd because XLI is not an expensive ETF, so why not go out to September or October? The implied volatility in this is like a 15, so it's really cheap. And then a lot of pre-earnings flow. I didn't even mention there's probably about 5 or 6 names that I could put on this list, but it's really difficult to know what they're doing. BLDR saw calls, but they report earnings in about a week. And then it was mainly just small stuff. There was a little bit more of JP Morgan, which I sold my very last piece of JP Morgan. What a hell of a trade this was. If I bring up trades, again, I always like to show full transparent about what I did today. If I can bring this up. Oh, my computer's so slow. There we go. Yeah, you can see I didn't do too much. I actually bought some Morgan Stanley calls. There was some end of the month calls for August 31st calls went up. I like the chart. I don't know if they were buying those because Morgan Stanley went X today. I started a position in KSU. You could see EA, which I added to. Oh, there it is. There. So again, $2,100 position for now. Maybe it'll grow to a $5,000 position, but for now I'm legging into some things. I bought a little bit of AAL. I got out of my JP Morgan for $4.75. I purchased this for $1.53. So nice move there. I was looking for cues to make a late day bounce. I didn't get it, so I was out for a 10-cent loss. So, that's pretty much how I traded today. So, I think you just have to be patient, and you may get some really good setups, maybe in a day or two. Still, if you look at the whole week, and again, try not to get too anxious. We've got all kinds of central bank meetings. I think they're only implying right now a 17% chance that they're going to raise rates, or maybe it's less than that at this point. Sorry, this computer is so slow right now. End of day stuff. There's an 18% chance that they raise interest rates on Wednesday, and pretty much a guarantee that they're looking for it in September. So we got that this week. We got an unemployment report, and again, a little company called Apple that reports after the close Tuesday, plus a ton of other reports on Thursday and Friday. So again, be patient. My plan is to start to leg into, as I'm saying, as I've mentioned several times, legging into a couple things, and then looking to establish bigger positions later in the week if we get confirmation. Thanks very much for watching, and have a great night.